Hi, my name's Ollie Guns. Welcome back to another Guns Contractors video. That's my firm. Today I want to talk to you about the realities of towing with one of these modern pickups. This is my Navara here, the MP300. It's a 2018 model, but this applies to all of the trucks. Your Ford Rangers, your Hiluxes, your VW Amaroks, the D-Max, whichever. All of them, same problem. And it's something that the manufacturers don't tell you. So if you tow with a pickup, you're a small contractor like me, maybe you tow your own plant like I've been doing this morning. This is vital information that maybe you know, but maybe you don't, or maybe you should let some of your mates know, because we think we may be within the law. There are all these trucks advertise themselves at 3.5 tons towing. Most of them do anyway. I think the L200's only got 3.2 ton. But anyway, outside of that, they're pretty much all now 3.5 ton towing. But there are some vital bits of information that they miss out that might mean that you're not quite as within the law as you thought you were. So, bit of a technical video this, a lot of numbers. I'm going to have to do a bit of remembering of some of these numbers to get them right. And by all means, don't quote me on the exact figures of what your truck may or may not weigh, because there's a lot of variables that can go within that, which I will explain. However, the principle is the same, and that is something that we need to be aware of as guys towing our own kit about, right? So, without further ado, I'll explain what I mean. So to start with, I've got a bit of paper to remember all this, because there's a lot of acronyms in towing and a lot of variables and different conditions that mean you can do different things. And for our American cousins, you can laugh at how pathetic our towing limits are, because the reality is in Europe you just can't tow anything more than 3.5 tons really with one of these little pickups that we have, and that's hugely limiting. In fact, in a way it's stupid, because you end up often towing the absolute maximum at this end, and you've only got, well, you may even have a trailer that's heavier than your towing vehicle, which is just like the biggest rule, like no of these things. Made worse by the fact that these pickups have quite a long overhang, so the tow bar is quite a long way off the back axle, and that's something I noticed coming from a short wheelbase Defender, Land Rover Defender, where the tow bar, ball is virtually on the back of the diff. You can get into situations with these trucks. So you learn that when you drive them, and that's the reality. You guys over the other side of the pond with air brakes and proper pickups with proper engines, I am hugely jealous. But for this video, bear with us for us Europeans, because, as I say, there's some important things here. So what you need to know is your there's all sorts of words for this, but your gross train weight, as I would call it. So that is the combined weight of the pickup truck and what the trailer weighs. Not just the trailer, its load, everything, right? Because that is where most of these figures get calculated from. Now that could be called your MAM, maximum authorised mass. It could be gross vehicle weight, gross train weight, which is what I know it as. Or I think a gross combination weight as well. There's like 5 or 6 different ways to mention this. Essentially, what if you put this rig on a weighbridge now, what would it weigh? And you need to find that out. Now that is, and vehicle manufacturers are better than others, some are better than others on this, but on my truck it's written on the VIN plate. So we'll have a look at what that number is. Now on the inside of the door here, hopefully you can see this, we've got a load of figures written here. The top one, 3,045 kilos. That's the total weight of the vehicle. So that's what it can weigh with a load in the back, the full load in the back, which they say is, I think on my Navara, is just over a ton. Yeah, 1,047 kilos. That's with 1,047 kilos in the back, fuel in the tank, oil in the engine, driver sat in the seat of a, they don't tell us what the driver weighs, of course. Some of us are fatter than others, I know I certainly am. That's our maximum vehicle, right? So this next number, 6,000 there, 6 ton, that is the crucial one. Because that is your train weight, right? So the combined mass between the vehicle. and the trailer. Now, they tell us we can tow 3.5 tons, right? So if we can put 3.5 ton on the back, but we've only got a train weight of 6 ton, then we don't have 3,045 kilos left out of those two numbers, do we? This is where the maths comes, and this is what they don't tell you. Essentially, you cannot load the back up with a full load. In fact, you'll find anywhere near the load when I run through the figures in a minute, and tow 3.5 ton on the back. Not that I have at the moment, but that's the principle, right? So that's the key takeaway here. You've got to be very careful on this, because those weights there stated are, you know, standard weights. That doesn't include your lunchbox, anything in here, let alone tools in the back. So we pretty much always have what would be described as a load, right? Even this canopy here, this one, looking at myself in the rear, that is of course added extra, and that is not included in the weights on that plate. Neither are the floor mats or anything else, you know, the fact that I've got different tyres on it or whatever. So just because the numbers add up on the paper doesn't even mean to say that's what you've got for your actual truck. And that's the same with the trailers. Now these trailers, they tell us, you know, what they weigh. This one's in suspension. I for Williams, you know, they tell us what they weigh. They don't tell you though what it weighs if you spec the spare wheel. If you have a full ramp tailgate, for example, if you add metal on the floor or all these other extras that you can do. Some of them have got, you know, all kinds of things, extra bucket rests and all sorts of stuff. Very, very nice trailers. But they'll only ever give you the lightest possible number, because of course they want to sell you a trailer that can carry the most, right? So you need to understand what your trailer actually weighs and what your pickup actually weighs, with some reasonable stuff in it, what you have, and then you can start working these numbers out properly. However, even without that information, I'll run through exactly where you can get caught up with this stuff. So you might be thinking to yourself then, well, are these towing limits misleading? Because you're saying 3.5 tons, I can tow 3.5 tons, but I can't have anything in my truck. Well, sort of are and they sort of aren't. I think what they do is they pick, manufacturers will always pick the best side of things and go, we've got a 3.5 ton towing capacity. Well, you have, but sometimes with not a lot in the back, and I'll explain. So, figures off the internet, again, difficult to get hold of for this Navara, and they vary depending on where you look. But of course the specs vary. So this is a Tecna double cab. That means it's got leather and sat nav and it heats my bum up as well in the cold. So a bit of spec, right? The king cabs, the single cabs, and a double cab with less spec may well weigh less, because of course it's got less extras fitted to it. Different engines are the same, right? But this one in particular, we go over this one. I reckon it's got a curb weight being weight of the truck with no load in it, but a driver, fuels, oils, etc., as it would sit next to the curb in theory. They give it a curb weight of just over 2 tons, so 2,031 kilos. Now they give the payload of 1,047. Strangely enough, when I worked all this out, sat at home this morning, I didn't look at the plate on my truck, but having just done that before I started filming this, those two numbers don't add up to the number I've got on that plate. So somewhere on the internet, them figures aren't quite right. I'm about 30 kilos out from what the plate says to what I got this morning off the internet. Worth knowing. So I can carry just over a ton, I think, with the plate. Bearing in mind that the curb weight, of course, is 2,031 kilos. Now, I've got a 6-ton train weight for both, right? So if we take away 3,000 well, it's actually 3,040 something, isn't it, off the plate? I've got it 3,078 here with the figures I worked out this morning. That leaves me with 2,922 kilos that I can tow with a full truck. So, very, very important to know how much this bit weighs in order to know how much you can pull over here. Now, that basically, if I put 3.5 ton on the back, thinking about it another way, if I put 3.5 ton on here, put the 8026 on here, now as mine stands, that's definitely all of a 3.5 ton load. And I have weighed it, by the way, on a weigh bridge, so I know exactly where I stand, and I'd recommend other people do as well. But anyway, put 3.5 ton on the back, or you can't put 3.5 ton, put 2.940 kilos, because of course my trailer weighs something, right? So you need to know what your trailer weighs, then you know what you can put on the back. Anyway, 3.5 ton here, this end. That gives me, when you take away the curb weight of this vehicle in standard form, and remember mine's got a truckman cab on it, floor mats, any other things that have been added, my lunch, various bits and bobs. Without that though, empty truck, as in stock form, I have a spare capacity of 469 kilos, as I worked out this morning. So, well, you think that's not bad, is it? 460 kilos, well, my lunch doesn't weigh that much. I do like a biscuit though, but you know what I mean? You've got a bit of room. So it's not all bad. You've got 3.5 ton on the back, you've got your stock truck, you've got 460 kilos. But I bet you add up how much the truckman weighs. Floor mats don't weigh a lot, but it all adds up. I've got a fridge in there for the summer, got to keep your drinks cool. Got some tools in the back, shovels, bit of grease, a few spares, stuff that you have in the back, right? We go to work, got to go to work. That 469 kilos is going to be eaten up awfully quickly. And this truck, and one of the reasons I got the Navara, is a lighter truck. If you have one of them, and I really did want one back in the day, the 3.2 litre Ranger with that 5-cylinder engine, no doubt, an absolutely brilliant engine when it worked. I know they had issues, oil pumps and things, but great truck, tows excellent. It's the reason it was the best-selling truck in the UK for a long time. That engine was fantastic. However, the Navara hasn't got that, but it is lighter, and that can make all the difference, because if you've got one of them chunky Rangers, again in stock form, before you put any bits on it, they are 2,260 kilos at curb weight. So 2,031 for this, 2,260 for that. So you're essentially halving your 460 kilos, right, that I've got spare. You only may have half that, and that really wouldn't take very long, especially if you're a bit heavier than the stock driver that they work these curb weights out to, where I can't even find that information. But you know, 90, 100 kilos, quite a few of us weighing that kind of amount. I know I do, and there's some that weigh a bit more. You're eating into those spare kilos. So you need to understand what you weigh, what this weighs as a total with the bits in it, and then you can work out whether you're legal or not. Because the problem is, you get pulled over, and VOSA are very keen to do all of your weights. They could do you on an axle weight. You might find, and this again is another problem with the design of the pickup, is that the weight is all hanging virtually over the back end of the rear axle because of where the axle is. You could quite easily end up over on, you know, a bit of nose weight on the trailer, puts weight on the rear axle, doesn't it? You've got to be very, very careful about these things, and as soon as you're towing a trailer, you're a target, because it's so many of us are inadvertently, possibly, running around on the limit or a bit over, because this is not made that clear. So that's the whole point in today. I really wanted to make a point about these trucks. Plenty of people ask me what the Navara is like for towing, why I've got one. You know, I'm not a car review channel. I review diggers, machines, kit, and stuff that hopefully will help other small contractors like me, and maybe even some bigger ones, you know, do a better job. I'm all about technology and pushing the boundaries on the trade that we're in, right? And this is something maybe a lot of people didn't realise. Interestingly enough, the Land Rover Defender, for all of the things that we hate about them, and some of us love them as well, I have one still. That has a train weight of 7 tons, or many of them do, and therefore you can actually load them up more with gear in the back and tow 3.5 tons. That's probably the reason they were very, very popular with some of the companies. Horrible to drive, long distances especially, but there was a lot to those Land Rovers that these pickups just haven't got yet. And I don't know how we improve that, but it's not just even the problem with pickups. It can be the same for some of these transit tippers or vans or Zuzu grafters or Nissan Cabstars. all of these vehicles, some of which have the Iveco Daily, some of them have got 7-ton train weights. You can put a lot in the back and tow 3.5 ton, and that is a very, very good weapon. Of course, the reason they're like that, it makes them horrible to drive day to day. Of course, the pickups are a great compromise. But anyway, I'm not a vehicle guy particularly. I enjoy vehicles, but this isn't what this channel's about. I just want to make sure that everyone understands, as I didn't for a long time, where you sit with these modern pickups and towing trailer. So at the moment, I've got a load of tools in the back of my truck. We've got a roller at 1.6 ton on there, so I'm within my train weight, right? But it's when you start getting up near the limits of either the truck or the trailer that you can quite easily end up over the limit here. However, that's not all of it with the towing, because there's also a small thing of tachographs, most of which most of us don't run because of exemptions. But you need to understand what the exemption is and where you sit within that, because it's another thing that you could potentially be pulled up on. So, when it comes to tachographs, most pickups in the UK, if you're towing commercially, in fact pretty much all really, you would have a tachograph fitted. Now, the exemptions mainly come in a couple of ways, and the first one is the hire and reward exemption. So if you're towing a horse box at the weekend, for example, or you've got your own race car or something and you're going somewhere, that's a personal activity. It's not part of a commercial activity, you're not making any money from it necessarily. Then in theory, you can tow without a tacho. However, tricky, of course, if you're, let's say, well, either competing in anything, whether it's a horse or car or whatever, you're towing, and you're, of course, getting prize money, because actually that kind of is reward, isn't it? So, a bit of a grey area, and you need to understand where you stand within that. However, I'm not going to get into all of the intricacies of the law, because there are plenty of very old, I guess, laws and the intricate details of where people think they might be one side of the line or the other. That is for you to decide. However, all I will say is there is also, for most of us small contractors, an exemption for towing, where the towing, the driving, the hauling essentially of your machine is not part of your main activity, and you're within a certain radius of your base. Now, what they define as base, I don't know. It's all very open to interpretation, but essentially, as of 2015, actually, they upped it from, I think, 50k to 100k. You could tow a mini digger, machine, whatever, because that's your main activity, and you're driving. The towing is not part of your main activity. So within 60 odd miles for us, 100k, you can tow without a tachograph. But very easy to fall within the tachograph regulations, because if you were towing that machine, let's say for your lads to use, it wasn't you using it, or you were towing it to site for them, or you were a small little hire company, you're towing it to a job to hire, that is hire and reward, falls under tachograph regulations. So very, very easy to kind of fall into that. It's a very specific exemption. And you just need to be aware of where you stand, because that's what it's about. So really, there's a whole load of regulations. I'm not going to read them all out here. It's up to you to go and find out for yourselves and work out where you sit. But you need to understand where you sit with the tachographs, because that's another area. You could be completely fine on the vehicle, your weights are fine and everything, and you might inadvertently fall into the wrong category and not have a tacho, which of course is also something you can be prosecuted for. So I hope that's given you a bit of an insight with how these modern pickups, you can't tow as much as you think you can, and it's important to know where you sit depending on the weights you've got in the back, etc., as I've covered in the video. Anyway, if that helps one person just understand where they are, then that's all important. And as we're all obviously trying to earn a bit of money, the more we can tow, save on haulage, it's a benefit to us, right? But you need to understand whether you are or aren't within the regulations, and then it's up to you to go from there. But with the right information, at least you know. So thanks for watching. If you like these kind of videos, obviously please give us a like. Subscribe would be great. Try and do real videos really of things that I find during contracting, things that I didn't know when I was starting out, and things I've learned along the way. Machine reviews. If that's the kind of thing you like, then stick around, because I do my best to feed you guys the information that I would like to know. So thanks for watching, and hopefully catch you in the next one. If I don't see you before Christmas, everyone have a good, well, only like a couple of weeks off, because we could do with it. It's been a tough year, well, hard year, long year. Next year may be tricky as well. The work keeps coming, we'll keep working. Anyway, catch you soon guys, see ya.